Okay. Let's officially start this off, man. As we proceed
to give you what you need.
It's 9-5, another episode of the 95 Plus podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Ragler, aka Dreadhead in the Lobby, not Chance the Rapper, more like Probability the Poet, and I'm sitting across from the 2016 United States Barista Champion,
Lem Butler.
Sexy Foam himself, the one, the only, Lem Butler. And Lem, how you doing today, brother?
Doing great, man. Doing fabulous. And speaking of 2016,
yes, sir.
We'll get into that a little bit. We got a guest who saved my life in 2016.
Oh my God, I did save your life in 2016.
Yeah.
And mine in 2015.
Oh my God. You know what's so funny? I was thinking about Sarah randomly and this morning when I was getting ready. And then I remembered saving your life in 2016. And I was like, oh, Sarah. Yes.
Yo,
Hi, Sarah.
So I guess.
Let's introduce her. Come on, man.
Yes.
Introduce the great.
Tymika Lawrence.
Hello.
In the house.
So happy to be here.
Yeah.
Yes.
In living color.
For real.
Hey, man. Wow. We talked about you a pretty good deal on one of these past episodes. So
Which
if y'all remember, we brought Tymika up. And I think we talked about her before too. A couple other times.
I think so, but that last podcast, you guys really touched my. I really needed to hear the stuff that you were saying that day, so thank you for that.
Of course, I mean it's not too often, especially for us in this industry, that you get to kind of see the impact that you have. Like we've talked about this a good bit of like you kind of just move through the world just doing what you do, being who you are, and you don't know how that matters to people until you get a chance to reflect. So I'm glad you got to see that.
Thank you.
We got a million things to talk about when it comes to you. First off, new mom, congratulations.
Yeah, for real.
Congratulations.
Oh my goodness.
How's it feel?
It's the best. It's the fucking best. It's also, I mean, it's everything that everybody says, right? Which is, it all sounds very cliche until you're in it.
Yeah.
Which is, everyone's like, it's the hardest thing you've ever done, but it's the best thing you've ever done. And when you haven't had kids before, you're like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? Because you're like, what? Those two things sound like they're on opposite sides. Yeah. How can they both be true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it is. It's like, it's such a gift to be able to see like a new little life turn into a person with like their very own very strong personality. And to be there to sort of support them through that process is exciting. And it's also a big fucking responsibility.
How is that shift? Because you started in coffee, no family.
No family.
No child responsibility. I
was just out here, y'all.
And then boom.
Boom.
Like,
married.
And I watched it all on Instagram.
Yes,
Got
literally. Literally.
No, first I got a man.
Yeah. Right. Let's start from the beginning. I had an international boo thing. We got married. He immigrated. He came here. We have my daughter. And then just this summer, his son has joined us. And so it is crazy because it went from like, even just 3 years ago, I was just kind of out here, like not really responsible for anything. And I don't think except for keeping myself alive and fed and being a good partner to my spouse, which is not that much responsibility in comparison, right? Of course, it's still a lot. It's still hard, but it's just such a huge shift because you're like, damn, I'm really responsible for shaping these two beings and being supportive to them, and everything I do will have some kind of impact on them. And that is a lot of, because and even as a kid, you remember like both good and bad things that your parents have done that have stuck with you forever. And it's like, now you're the parent and the things that you do will stick with them forever. Yeah. And it's that, when you think about it, it's a huge responsibility.
Word.
But it also feels good. And I feel like as long as I can honestly say that I'm holding myself accountable to being a good parent and always trying to be a better parent, then I'm doing the best that I can. But it will never be like, I'm doing the best that I can because that's what, some of our parents will be like, but I did the best I can. I guess I'm not perfect. And I don't mean it in that way. It's just like being really accountable to my kids and being like, okay, I really do need to do the best that I can. Right. And it might not always hit the mark. And I don't have to beat myself up about it, but I for damn sure need to try better next time. Yeah. So it's a thing.
Funny enough, on the way here, I was actually listening to a podcast that I one of the podcasts I enjoy listening to, and the guest was on there talking about how being a father and being a dad like was kind of a thing that they had to have a second revelation of when they retired from playing basketball. And it was like one of the things that I realized, because like when you're always on the road, you're always working, like you're the person screwing everything up when you come home. Like you on the road for 12 days straight, you come home trying to, take your kids out and do the like, oh, I want to be an active like parent thing, but you're screwing up the routine. They in bed by 9. They got, like, and he's like, once I retired, I really wanted to like become a like, great dad.
Right.
And I would always ask my kids, like, how am I doing? Like, you kind of want your kids to give you grades and like hold you accountable, because we get that everywhere else in the world. We get exit meetings, we get quarterly reviews, things of that nature. Like, you always want to know like how you're doing as a parent and how to constantly be better. So
yeah, and I feel like that's my parenting philosophy. So in a lot of ways I really enjoy it, and sometimes I'm like, fuck, this is a lot of pressure. Like, but it does push me in a way that really nothing else has. Right. So like little stuff, like I've been saying, like, oh, we need to do this, or we need to do that, we need to do this. And now that their kids are here, I'm like I used to be like, okay, we gotta eat dinner at the dinner table. And I would always say that, but then we never did. And my husband was like, you know what? You're really good at making changes to yourself for the kids. So like if it's something that you view as important for the kids, something that you've been saying that you need to do for years, you'll be like, all right, it needs to happen. Like it actually has to happen now. So in some ways it's really nice, because some things about parenting are like being on a schedule where like everybody's in bed at a reasonable hour. That's kind of great, myself included, right? Because I'm like one of those people that was always up until 2 a.m. And that is not
change is cool.
I'm like, not be in bed by 9:30.
I can't wait till my kids start doing that. Good.
Oh my gosh. Well, I gotta say, our eldest Abraham, he's great. By that time, he is like knocked. Nadia, she is like, she's on her own. She is on her own time. She's on her own time. She's not there yet.
Yes, sir. All right. So yes, we're gonna definitely dive further into the parenthood conversation. But before we go there, you are a dope ass amazing person far before you became dope ass amazing mom. So let's give the people the Tymika Lawrence story. Talk to us.
Oh shoot. Okay. Yeah. Okay, where are we starting? Where should I start?
I mean, you tell us. Where if you were starting this movie
here, or do you want to start in the beginning?
Like if you wanted to do the that's me. I bet y'all wonder how I got myself into this. Let's start from the beginning.
Let's start from the beginning. You know what? We'll start from failing out of school. Because that actually changed my life and put me on a different trajectory. Like I know everyone says, oh, I was such a different person, but no, really, I was a really different person. So like I graduated from high school young. I was 16 when I graduated from high school. I went to school right away. I should not have done that. I should have worked for a year, but in my family, it's like education. I think it depends on where you come from, but for us, it's like, I'm not the first person in my family to have a degree. I'm like the only person at my age group. All my family has certifications above me, the generation above me. And so me not going to college was like a huge, like when I failed out was like, no one ever said you cannot go straight, and no one would have ever told me that, right? So when I failed out, they were all like, what the are you going to do with your life? Because like you need to do something. And they were really frantic about what was going to happen to me. And so one of them helped me get a job on a cruise ship in Maine. It was a small cruise ship. It was my first like real deal hospitality job, right? Where I was like charged with helping to create an experience for people. And I was so fucking shy. I mean, like when I went to my college tour, I tried to hide behind my grandma who's like 5'2". Like this is the person, like if someone would come towards me this way on the street, I would like look down and walk away. Like this is the kind of person that I was. But having to serve people and engage them really like little by little pulled me out of my shell and let me be able to be myself with other people that didn't know me well, which was not a thing before. So once I got back from that job, I was kind of like, hospitality, I need something to do. But I had not worked in coffee up until that point. And I interviewed for a cafe job as one of the servers. And she was like, listen, our barista wants to be a server. But if you want to be a barista, that works for me. And I was like, are the hours the same as far? Because they were like, I'd be done work by 4. She was like, yeah. I was like, great. Great. Sign me up. I don't care. I just need a job.
Right.
But it was at a counterculture account in Meister, Ever.
Homie.
Yeah.
And Katie, and Tommy gave classes. And I was like, whoa, like this is a whole thing. Like I was only going because in my Virgo-ness, I always want to be good at everything that I'm doing, right? So I'm like, if you're offering me an opportunity to learn how to actually do this job, then I'm going to take it. And I've always been really food-minded. I used to think that I wanted to be a chef. And if I would have went to school for that, I wouldn't have had issues, right? Like I should have just kind of followed what felt natural for me. But since everyone was, I even had a history teacher say, you're too intelligent to do that. And I was like, what? What does that mean? But I did let it get to me, So I didn't follow like my being like, actually, I'm really palate driven. I should just do something that focuses on that. So when I got to counterculture, I was like, damn, like this is a whole thing. There's a whole industry here. There's a lot for me to learn. And that changed everything. That job, from there I went to Stumptown. And it was, I feel like so many experiences I had like that were just me following, instead of trying to follow the prescription for my life. Like I had a customer come in and was like, hey, you really love coffee. You make it really well. There's this cafe that opened up. You should go. Have you never been to Stumptown? And I was like, no, I've never even heard of it, right? Because I'm not plugged into coffee. Right. I'm just a barista that likes making coffee. And he's like, you should go. So one day I'm like there in the area and I was like, let me check out this Stumptown place. I go in there. They're playing Beyonce.
That'll do it.
They're playing Beyonce. They got everyone is nice to me. My coffee was delicious. And I went home and I was like, I want to work at this place. And I looked and they were hiring. And I applied and I got the job. So, and everything, and like all of it, like all of my transits through coffee have happened in this very natural way where it was just the right time for me to transition and someone brought it up to me. And also someone was supportive of me, right? Because I used to think that I wanted to do the account manager job. But there wasn't one available at Stumptown. And I was like, do you think I can do this job? To my friend, because I saw the qualifications and I was like, oh, I don't think I can do this job. And my friend Jamie was like, are you kidding me? If I could hire you to do this job at Stumptown, if there was an opening, I would do that yesterday. Right. Of course you can do this job. And I was like, you think? He's like, you better go apply for that job like now. And I was like, okay. And I applied for the job and I got it, right? And so like everything that happened like that in my coffee career has happened because I decided to follow what seemed right at the time. And I had the support of people who thought I could do a thing, like same deal when I got into sales. Teresa, who I will always love, Teresa Von Fuchs. She was heading up the sales team at Genuine Origin. She was like, I think you can be a salesperson. And I was like, I don't agree. I don't think I can sell anything actually. And she was like, first of all, you're already doing that. You don't see it that way, but you're already helping other people sell things. Whether you see it that way or not, that's not true. But also, if you're willing to like have a dinner with me, let's talk through what sales could look like for you specifically, right? Like what you can bring to the table and how you could do it in a way that feels good and natural to you. And we had the dinner and she was like, hey, I really want you to apply for this and I want to bring you on the team. And I was like, I still don't think I can be a salesperson, but I'm going to try. And now I've been in sales for, I think 7 years now, right? Yeah. So it's one of those things where I just like had the support of people who really saw it for me and who made me feel like, even if I didn't feel like I was there in the moment, that I could get there. Right. And just kind of being open to that. And if I didn't fail out of school, like none of this happens.
Right. We had a conversation yesterday where we talked about that whole butterfly effect thing.
Yeah.
Where you can pinpoint to, if this doesn't happen, all of this other stuff doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's always fun to kind of go back and like process it, because you also get to see like, cool, this is who I was in that moment.
Yes.
You know?
And I was just such a different, and what I mean by different is I was just so scared. I was like a scared person. I was scared to be myself. I was scared to put myself out there. So I'm actually personality wise, I'm the same person, right? But I wasn't in a place to be able to share that with other people in a way that felt comfortable or natural to me. And so when I think about that, I'm just like, I can't believe I used to be that person, but I was.
It's interesting because I think all of us has a little piece of that in some ways, and we show it differently.
Yeah.
Like you go, I'm like shy, I'm scared. I didn't necessarily want to show that, but like my experience of you has always been like this very strong public facing.
For
like,
real.
Like
for real. Because you say you're only in sales for 7 years. Right. That means 6 years ago, you were in sales for a year, and you sold us our first pallet of green coffee.
And this is what I'm saying.
And I was like, yo, there was no fear at all that I detected.
And that's that's the thing. Like even now, if I am doing a cold call, I'm still scared.
Yo, I don't.
Even when I started, I'm still scared.
I don't do cold calls. Like as a salesperson,
I
don't do it. I can't.
I think sometimes you can. I think sometimes you can avoid it, but sometimes depending on what it is, like if you really, and I think a lot of times when I'm driven by, and thanks again to Teresa, she's such a good salesperson, and she teaches you how to do it in a way that it works for you. And she was like, the thing is, you're not a vacuum salesperson trying to sell green coffee, or you're not trying to sell a vacuum to a roaster, right? Because that would make you annoying. Right. You have a service that you're trying to offer that they actually need. Maybe they don't need it from you right now. Maybe they'll need it from you in a year. Maybe they'll need it from you in 2 years. Maybe it will take a while for the right opportunity to come up. But you're not trying to sell. What you're trying to sell them is a central component to their business. And her saying that made it so much easier for me to just like put myself out there, because I'm like, you know what, you're right. And I am a salesperson that will make myself available to my clients. I really want to help them. I really want the best fit for them. You know what I mean? Like I'm always very honest with them. And so I was like, you know what? She was like, yeah, who doesn't want a salesperson that will do that stuff? She was like, even if they don't know it yet.
Yep.
She's like, even if they don't know it yet, why wouldn't somebody want to work with a salesperson like you? And I'm like, you know what? Okay. But every time, doesn't matter. If I'm walking into a roastery and they're not expecting me, I am nervous as fuck. And I just wrote somebody this.
You all nonchalant. Oh, y'all coming up for a New York Coffee Festival? Why don't you just stop by the office, cup some coffee? Oh yeah, sure. And we walk away with a powder.
But that's what I've gotten to learn is
that's a salesperson.
Right. But that's what I've like is the only thing I'm really comfortable with is when it doesn't feel like a transaction.
Right.
When you're being authentic.
Yes. And I think that there's a way, exactly, right? And that's part of what Teresa said too. She's like, just show up authentically as yourself. And then you've done what you can do. And like, if they need it, great. And if they don't, then they won't. But if you know you have something great to offer them, why wouldn't you at least try, right? But I still get like a little feeling in the pit of my stomach. But then I open my mouth and I'm like, I know what I'm doing here. Like, and maybe they'll bite, maybe they won't. But I've done my bit. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's funny but I still feel that way. And even before recording I've recorded 1 billion podcasts. I still feel that way every time. Even when I do the one with Ezra, and it's like, that's my homeboy. Like we're just doing a normal friend podcast, and I still feel very nervous. Yeah.
I mean, that was definitely us, like in the beginning too, like figuring out what our chemistry would be, pulling you out your shell, getting me to actually speak on the mic. And it's weird because I have a performance background,
right?
But when you develop a skill set, you get comfortable in the thing that you already know how to do.
Yeah.
That you forget how transferable those skills are. That's you with sales. It's
it's true.
That's even me with sales too, where it's like now I have a routine that works for me, and like I have ways that I'm comfortable cold calling within context, or like interacting with people within context, because I've tricked my mind into this is what makes it okay.
Right.
And now I can be my best self because I've like Jedi mind tricked myself.
Listen, we're just all making it through life one Jedi mind trick at a time.
Just out here thugging, man.
So you jump from So you skipped a part.
I skipped a part. Which part?
So you went from Stumptown and then you went to Genuine Origin.
No. Oh, yes.
So
I was yes. I was an account manager in between there. I was an account manager from at Counterculture.
Yeah. That's how we met.
Which is where I met you.
And me.
And you. That's right. Yeah.
I was baby.
Yes, you were a baby barista manager. And I will say I picked up a lot of what I think when people think of me now as like a strong public like speaker and stuff like that, I actually did pick that up at Counterculture, 100%. With the labs.
Yeah, with those labs. Yeah.
The labs,
Friday tastings.
The labs and the Friday tastings at 10, they really took like kind of catapulted me because I was like, and again, same really good advice from my forever friend, Tommy Gallagher, who he saw me doing the lab from he saw me do my first lab, but I was doing it the way that the person who showed me how to do it did it. And he was like, you can just do it like Tymika would do it. And he was like, because you did a good job teaching that lab, but that didn't feel like you to me. And I was like, okay. And the next time I showed up to a lab, I did it the way that I would do it. And he was like,
I could totally hear Tommy saying that too.
Yes, because it's such Tommy. Yeah. Yes, it's such Tommy advice. Because I was like, and of course at that time and still, he's so knowledgeable and kind that I was like looking up to him and I was like, tell me, like, I need to know how did I do? Like, I was like dying to know what he thought. And I was also very nervous to know what he thought because I respect him so much. And so he was like, that's exactly what he said. He was like, but you could do this lab like yourself. And I was like, okay. And the next time I did the lab, I did it myself. And he was like, yeah, that's it. And I was like, you're right. And so every time it gave me like, and you do the labs a lot. So it really pushed me in that direction.
I have never heard this story before that you just told, but I can tell how it's impacted you. Because you taught that to me.
Oh, Anthony.
Do you remember my counterculture certification?
I do. I do.
So, fun fact, when I was working at Counterculture, I ran into James like towards the end of my time there. And he brought up that he was one of my judges for that was the era where the counterculture certification was the mock barista competition.
Yeah.
And like I went in there, I knew jack shit about coffee. Let's be real, because I failed that written test with flying colors, if you remember. I failed that shit like hell.
Anthony.
But the barista competition side, I relied on two things. It was my performance background with poetry and theater and seeing your routine shortly before I took this thing. And was able to just like pass that part. Yeah. But it was the whole like doing it as I saw it be done. Like this was how you do a barista competition routine. And it wasn't until I made that transition going into the 2020 year that I started to sound like myself on that stage. And that was passing off the like script to my routine to you and to plenty of other people that saw it. But like learning to sound like myself in a formatted space that isn't already myself.
Right.
Like you helped that in such an instrumental way.
Thank you, Anthony. It was very impactful for me. And Tommy will always undersell his impact
to everyone.
But he really was such a strong mentor for me at Counterculture in New York. And I have gained so many skills there that continue to serve me. And he was a really, really big part of that, just by like being kind and being present and being honest. And he just wants to see people do well and be happy and be themselves, right? So yeah, it was such a transformative moment for me in like a lot of ways.
And you're ultimately talking about how you took traits that were already in you to now become transferable skills within the workforce.
Exactly.
And I think that's a good segue because the work that you're doing now isn't something that most people, when they walk into the industry, know as a route.
Yeah, it's true.
I really only learned that specialty coffee had all of these different avenues because I met you. So for those that are watching that are career baristas, for those that are watching that are like doing the cafe circuit, cafe to management pipeline, back down to barista, back up, and like want to find their way into whether it's green coffee, education, training, whatever it may be, like what would be your advice to those people?
Well, to start, so what I'm doing now, because I realized I didn't mention that. So I'm at Atlas Coffee Importers, and I have been for the past 5 years, and I'm doing sales on the East Coast. And I also did not know that this existed when and even green coffee is really mysterious. It didn't matter that I worked for roasters who bought a lot of green coffee and who actually had a lot of like detail into their relationships. And I had that detail, and I still didn't know shit about green coffee until I started working in it. And so what I would say is one of the other really important skills that I learned and that I developed was being a cafe manager. Being a cafe manager kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Kind of?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, I grew a fuck ton in that role. And even now I look back and I view my cafe manager role as like my college years. Because it was like I put in a few years doing a thing that was hard. And I took so many good skills out of it that, again, still serve me today, right? But I think the most important thing to do is, it's great to want to be excited about coffee and its quality and all of that. But if you want to gain a professional skill set, cafe manager to me is an unskippable job. Okay. If you want to, especially maybe if you don't have other types of professional experience, because you will like read profit and loss statements, and you will figure out costing, and you will, even in a bigger company, you're aware of how much you're spending on what and where, and the role that you play in keeping things profitable. And then there's the big, like, working with people as a leader role and what it means. I have another mentor who I love. Her name is Liz, and she was tough as nails. And anybody that worked at Steptown during that time will tell you. And because she was so tough, I thought that when as a manager, that I was going to need to, that she was going to say, okay, and you need to be like a tough manager. You need to do this, you need to do that. And I was like, I don't understand, these people that I am working great with, all of a sudden I'm having a hard time working with them now that I manage them. And she's like, oh, to be clear, you also work for them. And don't manage them like they work for you, because actually you work for them. And if you want them to keep working here, you need to keep them happy. And you need to figure out how to talk to them so that they'll do what you need them to do. And you can't just be telling people, oh, can you do this? Even though you're fine with that form of communication. So your manager asks you to do something, you don't care. You just do it.
Right.
But she was like, but you have to understand, they also were working with you and y'all were buddies, and now you're their boss. And that's tricky. She was like, so you work for them, you're in service to them. And to this day, I have people who tell me, you're the best manager I've ever had. And that's the biggest like coffee career compliment, because it was rough. I found it hard, you know? So it forced me to grow a fuck ton. So one of my major advices that I tell everyone is take the cafe manager job and then apply yourself to it. Do not half-ass it. Figure out how to work with people. Figure out how to create a space that people want to be in, that feels fun to be in, while also figuring out how to keep standards high. And the skills that you have leadership-wise are really, really useful. And the people skills that you get. Because a lot of everything about coffee is relationship, but not in a transactional way. And you need to be careful that you're not operating in a transactional way, because people don't like that. It doesn't feel good, right? And so you have to figure out how to show up and be real and really be committed to this and help get the best out of people without trying to make it seem like it's just something that you are doing because it serves you. And it will serve you, right? But it also serves the person. Right. But you have to make them feel that way. Yeah.
You hit so many like dings in my head just now. So first one is the cafe manager role, and is probably one of the most diverse like skill set like amplifiers, because you talked about like curating a space that your like employees want to be at, but you're also still curating a space that the guests that are coming in want to be at. So it's that balance of like, how do you make this a great cafe that has a great work-life experience, but also is a great consumer experience. I also
culture too.
Right. Culture is tough.
Because the thing is, what people don't realize is it's easy for your staff to be nice to people when they're happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're not, like, so because all of that affects the customer experience. But if they're having a shitty experience working for you, then your customers are also going to have a shitty experience, right? And this just doesn't create the vibe of a place that anybody, like you said, that anybody wants to be in. Yeah.
And so when I first took the cafe manager job at Dub Pies, which was shortly before you and I first met, huge part of it was I was still touring a lot and performing. I had a daughter who was 2.5 at the time, and I looked at it like, oh, I get to control the schedule now. Like, if I get to manage, I can just like set the schedule. I can be able to go do all my other stuff. I can make more money by just being able to like flex my life around a lot more. I didn't learn until I was in this position that being a manager means your baristas are telling you when you're going to work, not you're telling everybody else when they're going to work. And you learn that really, really, really fast. And another thing is I was 21 at the time, and hearing what you're talking about and like the journey that you had, you were at a similar age when you were managing cafes. Were you also dealing with being the manager and one of the younger people in the room?
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
I know how it was for me. So how was that for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think I was the youngest.
Oh, really?
I think I was the youngest person. Yeah. I mean, and by years. So, now that I'm looking back, I didn't take that into account at the time, but I'm sure that was also some of why it was hard for some of my coworkers to get accustomed to like the new situation. Cause they're also like, who is this baby child telling me what to do? I just found it didn't affect me. It obviously played a role, but I think the advice that Liz gave me was so good, which is just that you work for them. So figure out a way to make it so that they feel good doing what you're asking them to do. And I think that helped deal with the rest of it, right? And I was like, oh, I don't actually have to. I can say stuff that's, I'm asking you to do something, but in a way that feels like a friend is asking you to do something. And I will say I worked with amazing people. They made it easier. Like we had such a good golden staff when I got promoted, and people who were really committed to the cafe, to their coworkers. We showed up for each other. We covered each other's shifts. So even if that bit was hard at first, they did everything they could to help make it easy for me. And that really was like, I think that just helped a lot. I got lucky with the staff that I had when it happened. And also Liz seeing that, they were struggling and helping me figure it out. And when I heard that advice, I was pissed. I was like, what, Liz? Why? Because when you ask me to do something, I just do it.
But you're wired differently.
Yeah, right. I was like, you're my boss, I just do it. Yep. And she was like, well, honey, I don't know what to tell you, but it's not going to be like, it was a bitter pill to swallow, but it was such good advice. Yeah.
And it's also shout out to you working at a pretty like dope spot, because you can also work at a rat spot. You kind of you know some of my stories.
Yeah.
And fun fact, one of the things that helped me learn that actually was when it stopped being the separation of you and my coworkers, and like I actually hired a friend one time, and it was one of the few times I actually used the Counterculture Training Center. You opened the space up for me, and I helped train my best friend who was transitioning into working in coffee, just to like have something to do for a couple of months. And it was the biggest argument I ever had as a cafe manager, like shortly thereafter that training. Because it was one day he like writes in the chat, like, hey guys, I need someone to cover my shift for me. I'm busy. I got something going on. And because I'm his friend, I'm like, bro, I know what you just did, bro. Like you left the state to go holla at a chick.
Right.
And then just, like, I know what you did.
And now you're talking about you got something going on. Oh my God. Yeah.
But because you're the manager,
right.
the solution is you
deal with it. You work the shift, yeah.
But I'm opening, so now I gotta cover your clothes because you in Connecticut. Fam, bro, we were outside cussing each other. I'm like, there's no way you ain't show to the. Bro, he got on the Metro North, came back. He's like 3 hours late. But like, you have to learn that balance of like, this is how I get people to meet me where I need them to be,
right?
And how I like pull compassion out of them to like work with me. Like, you learn that skill in being a barista, a cafe manager.
Yeah,
that ultimately kicks in when you're doing sales, account managing, anything. You're just learning how to talk to people and not trick them, but like ultimately like get them to feel the right way about getting what it is that you need, you know?
Feel invested so that, you know, it's like, okay, this is my job.
Yeah.
I need to do this.
Yeah. You know? And they'll only do what they're willing to see you, what they see you do, right? Like the one thing I did have going for me, even though I was struggling with communication when I first started, was that they knew that I was willing to work as hard as they are, and that I would never ask them to do something that I wasn't willing to do, even as a manager.
Bingo.
Yeah, even as a manager. So I'm not going to be like sweep the floor and then I never do it. I'm not going to tell you to pick up the mop set, mop the floor, and then I never do it if I'm closing. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that is another thing that people have to understand. Like, you're not managing people from on high. You actually, as a manager, have to be willing to do everything that you're asking them to do, and then show up when they can't. Yeah.
I didn't learn that until a few years into coffee, because I got to see that from Wydown when I worked in DC. Like, it would get busy and the owners will hop online. They will jump in, they will bar it back, they'll hop on the espresso machine, whatever. My first cafe, literally the owner's like, if I got to come in here, something's wrong.
Right.
Like, when I see you, I want my flat white, and I'm out the door, and you remember them stories.
Oh yeah.
So these skills ultimately help to develop people into like these professionals that they can be. It's hard being the young person in the room with that driven mindset of like, I need to make this a career, or I need to like be great at this. And you have older people who this is a stopgap job,
right?
And they're not invested in the same way you are,
right?
And now we're on the other end of that. How do you interact with older, like being the older person that meets baristas, whether it was you were training, account managing, whatever, that didn't care about it in the same way that you did?
I just tried to connect to them on something real, right? So I would start every training kind of the same way. And then, but I just talk to people. I'm like a hairdresser. I just keep like a running conversation going, you know what I mean? And there's going to be something, right? There's something that I bring up. It's either be something that you're wearing, the music that you chose to put on in the cafe, a sticker on your laptop. There's going to be something, because I'm one of those people. I'm in everything, right? So I'm like, there's going to be something that I am going to be able to talk to you about. There's something about this that's going to make where I can connect you in a way that makes this something that you care a little bit more about. I also think some of it is letting go of perfectionism, right? Like at Stumptown, everybody was invested the same way in quality. We were constantly tasting each other's espresso, making adjustments. There was never like, it wasn't like an ego thing. But we were all invested. So there's not an issue if you're like, oh, this tastes a little over extracted, or here's what I think, blah, blah, blah. And when you're doing a training at a place that's not that place, where that doesn't exist, it's important to get them to good enough. And it's important to get them to understand what is definitely not servable, right? And it's always going to be better for you, if you don't care that much about coffee, to under extract this coffee than to over extract this coffee. So I'm going to put a hard stop on how long this coffee should go, because I know you might not, if I'm getting the vibe that you don't give a fuck, I'm just going to be like, okay, don't serve these people burnt coffee. Because 70 to 80% of people are having lattes, and under extracted espresso in a latte tastes like a coffee beverage. And it doesn't taste like a coffee beverage that is acrid. And so it's better for me to just get you to understand these are the basic parameters. And if you can stick inside these and recognizing who you're dealing with. And when I ran into that person, we would talk, we would have our little conversation, and I would be like, listen, this shit with the water running out to the end, we can't do that. We can't do that. Those don't taste good. Let's taste what together. You see the difference? Oh, So yeah, I feel like you just have to know your audience and let go of the like perfectionism to understand like there's a way to get good enough from people, and you need to know when you're only going to get good enough from people. Yeah.
When was that moment that you said, "Oh," or was there a moment that you said, "I'm going to make a career out of this"? Because I mean, I walked into coffee.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's just a job, you know. And 20 years later,
right, here you are. No, so I don't think. Let me think really hard. I think when I was at Stumptown is when I decided that I was going to make a career out of it. So far, like up until that point, it was kind of like I wasn't even thinking about advancing. So the thing is, even at 27, I felt like a baby, right? And I want to say I started at Stumptown when I was like 22. And I was living in my aunt's house, the aunt that raised me in the Bronx. I didn't have to pay rent. I was taking the train back and forth. Like I didn't have a lot of stuff to pay for. So I could just be like, I just need this job to cover my, like whatever things I need or want. It doesn't need to provide for anything. And so it let me kind of just stay in coffee because it didn't matter that I wasn't like earning a lot of money. And although Stumptown paid the best and they had full insurance, which was definitely crucial for me. Like, it was like when I started there, they were like, everybody gets full insurance and we didn't have to pay that much money for it. And it was excellent insurance. And so I was like, listen, I got insurance here, you know, and I was just like there doing my best, having fun. And Liz, my mentor, she was like, you know what? In a meeting one time, she's like, okay, we're going to need to start hiring for managers for the other cafe. We're going to open up another cafe, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, so if anybody's interested in that position, they should come up to me. And I went up to her and she was like, good, because you were the person I was talking to. Yep. It was you. You were the person I was talking to. So I'm glad that you came up to me. And it was then that I was like, okay, I might be able to make a little something shake here, you know, because she started teaching me how to do stuff. And I was like in a role where I wasn't a manager, but I started taking over inventory and stuff like that. And I had like a slow kind of like internship into management. And I would say that's when I was like, oh, I can like make a life here. And I was at Stumptown for nearly 4 years, and I learned a lot there and I loved it. And I think that made me feel like, okay, I really would like to keep doing this coffee thing if I can. Yeah.
Word.
Yeah.
Man, okay. Whew. I'm just processing because like that moment of this becomes a career, or like this can be a thing that I do, happen for you, and then you transferred it here because I didn't get that. Like, oh, this could be something I can make a career out of until I seen someone doing something that wasn't managing a cafe.
Yeah.
Like, even when I started to go, oh, I'm going to do this for a while, it was in conjunction with other things I was doing. I was managing restaurants, I was teaching, I was touring and performing. And like, what made me go, okay, cool, I think I can like do what I care about in life within coffee was starting to see how the clientele of the cafe I worked at changed as I worked there. Like, you remember where I was.
Yeah.
Ain't no way in hell no black people aren't there.
Yeah.
But I'm in there, and you know how you were like, oh, there's something that I can pull that can start the conversation. You know what ours was, right?
Yeah. What was it?
It was music.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I'm in there just.
That's right.
I think I'm probably in there playing some
You put me
Usher
on to Now, too.
Yes, I put you on to Now.
And to this day, lover.
Because you asked for the playlist.
To this
you
day,
asked
lover.
for my playlist from the barista competition, which I still have.
Yeah, you put me on to Now.
We go spin back at that because I just remembered another funny thing. But it was like playing the music I was playing, being at the cafe every single day. I'm right there in Brooklyn. All of a sudden, black people start walking in this cafe. Hey, let me see what's up with this. And like, then it starts to be a place that they come to and hang out a little bit more. And I'm like, oh, I can create spaces for us to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, why don't we have cafes and places we like to kick it at all day?
Yeah.
Oh, I could do that. And then that made me go, okay, cool, I'm going to open a cafe. now that I've been in this long enough, I know I have no desire to ever fucking do that.
That's how I feel. That's how I feel.
I learned I can make a career in this because I got to see you doing this as a career, and it wasn't front of house cafe work or management or ownership. Like it was like you did something totally different that taught me there was things that I didn't know that existed here.
Yeah, for me it was Ken McDuffie.
Yeah.
Yep.
My secret coffee uncle. He's like actually my uncle probably.
Yep.
But you brought up music. You brought up me giving you the playlist from my certification. One of my favorite moments with Tymika in Kansas City for nationals. And I'm tight because the fucking DJ played like a Facebook video or something mid my routine, threw my shit off. I went overtime by like 30 seconds. I'm like, cool. I know good and well I'm not making it to the semis tomorrow, whatever. So I'm rocking. I'm going to go do my serve the audience. And Tymika comes up to me. She's like, yo, your routine was great, man. I'm like, thank you. She's like, yeah, your playlist was great. Kanye's canceled, but you're...
yes. Kanye's out of here,
like,
but...
Now, I wasn't there yet. I wasn't there yet.
I forgot I said that. I can see the writing on the wall, Anthony.
I was like, no, you was there way before me. But I was like, nah, you, first off, I was like, you're not taking Wolves from me. And the reason why I couldn't let Wolves go at that time is the year before, my best friend took me, same best friend that I trained at Counterculture, took me to the Jay-Z concert for my birthday. He's doing the 444 tour. He took me to the Jay-Z concert for my birthday. And we at the concert, and Wolves is playing, like DJ's doing his set or whatever. And the entire arena is like in unison just doing Sia's part to this song. And I'm like, this moment.
Yeah.
Because stage presence, music, like that's just all my stuff. So I'm like, I'm putting this into my routine. I don't care. And then I think I ended it with Ghost Town with him and Cudi. And you're like, music was great. Kanye's killing. Damn, I love that playlist.
I would say that. I would say that. I forgot. I've said so much bullshit in my life. I can't remember a quarter of it.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God.
So now, obviously, in the sales world, you were interacting with a lot less of us.
Yes. Yeah, you got that right.
What's your connecting piece? Because us, it was music.
My connecting piece a lot of times is really wanting to help people. Mm-hmm. So, because people, I kind of forgot, like, oh, I have a wealth of experience that could be useful to people who are, especially roasters who are just starting, but even roasters who are, even people who are not, right? They're essentially running businesses with a bunch of moving parts. And I did that for a while in some really high volume businesses. And I learned a lot from it. And so some of it is just like, I have things to offer to people outside of the green coffee space. Like I would consider myself like a counselor salesperson, right? Which is that I really get to know people and I can create a rapport. Probably my most useful skill is that I can create a rapport with somebody that I've never spoken to in like 5 minutes. And it's just, I am genuinely interested in what they got going on. And so I just start from that place. And I'm like, tell me a little bit about your business. Like, what are you looking for? Like, how can I help you? Like, 'cause there's a lot that we can offer and it's kind of based on what you actually need, right? And so we'll just start talking about that. And sometimes, we'll connect on their families, or sometimes we'll connect on having like shared interests for certain origins. A lot of like my passion for particular coffees and relationship has been a real connecting bridge for people. Because I think people I will really only sell you something if I really think you need it. And so if that's the key, like I will never, and I've had people say, okay, well, sometimes people have sent me samples, but they're old. Or sometimes people have of coffees that are old, but they didn't tell me. Or they did this and they didn't tell me. And I was like, well, the first thing you need to know about me is that I'm honest as fuck and I will never do that. So like I will only recommend, because I ultimately want you to be happy. So if I offload a coffee onto you that you don't like, first of all, you're not going to come back. Second of all, I don't feel good about that. Because why am I providing you a thing that you hate? That is not what that's not the direction that I'm going for, right? So like letting people know up front that I'm really upfront. And so if I say something is so, then it is. And if I don't know, then I'm going to say, I'm not sure and I need to check. will never just pull something out of my ass and make it up, because this is the most, if you're a roaster, this is the most important part of your business, period. This is your product. This is your quality. This is what represents you. This is what you need to slot into something that you've been providing for your customers for years, and they need it to be good in whatever that means to them. And so people really respond to that, of being like, okay, I really feel like this person does want to help me, and I really feel like I can trust this person. And that if things don't, for whatever reason, turn out the way that you expected, I'm accountable. And so like, I will make myself available to you, and I will do whatever I can to help you. And a lot of times it's a shipper. Like, it's a lot of times it has nothing to do with us, right? But just being present and trying to be helpful in achieving some kind of resolution also really speaks to people. So I just think like people respond to honesty, and genuine interest, and somebody that wants to help them. And so that is where most of my connections are made with people now. But I also went to boarding school in Hershey, Pennsylvania for a long time. And so I have a lot of like cultural references that are not just New York. And that helps. Like, so like I have a lot of cultural references that are real cultural references for me, because I spent a lot of time out there. Yeah. I mean, I was there from 3rd grade to 12th grade. Ooh. And it's a boarding school. So I would be back in New York for the summer. I was back in New York for long breaks, but I was like growing up in between Hershey, Pennsylvania and New York City, which are two places that could not be more different. Yep. So in that way also have a lot of real cultural references that are not just, oh, I live in New York and I'm a New Yorker, you know? Yeah. And I feel like that helps too.
I feel like that's probably what made a little more of these connect. Because like for me, it's like my mom's mother's side, Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Oh, for real?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
My mom's side, my mom's dad's side is North Carolina.
Yeah.
And then the rest of my family is all New York. So like we would have certain like you'll see me make random references to things that like you'd be one of the few people to catch it.
It's crazy how many small things you and I have in common. Like Anthony's daughter Robin, her mother is Belizean, and my family's all from Belize. And I actually immigrated from Belize as a kid. And Belize, at the last time I checked, had less than 500,000 people in the whole country. I mean, it's a beautiful country, but it's a small place. Yeah. So small that like, if I meet a Belizean on the street and I ask them their last name, I can go to my grandma and be like, this person's last name is Flowers. And she'll be like, Flowers from Belmopan, or Flowers from Dangriga, or Flowers from, and she knows like, oh, this person's last name is Usher. Okay, well, there are Ushers in Placencia and there are Ushers here. So they must be from one of these two cities. Like that is how small.
That's what I told you about Ken with what happened when I came down here.
Yeah. That's how small Belize is. So it's so funny to even meet another Belizean just like out on the street, because it's such a small place. So I just feel like you and I have so many like small touch points of things that are just random that you would not expect.
But it also makes a lot of those small interactions that we have a lot more impactful. It's like what I said on that episode, where like large changes in small bursts and things that happen for me, like how I grew in this industry, how I like became a more well-rounded person within coffee through the interactions that we've had. But also like it's part of what makes us really good at the things that we do.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, because a lot of people in the roles that we have had, you know, account management, sales, things that I need to teach you how to like fake it till you make it, how to survive in rooms.
Yes.
And we both can attest to our greatest successes being when we weren't faking it.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. Like I just think the most important thing that you can do is be authentically yourself. Because I wouldn't be happy in coffee otherwise. Like
be miserable.
It would be miserable. And if you are not yourself, then you end up places where people are connecting with the not you. Right. So like when I, especially at this age, right, if I interviewed, like when I interviewed at Atlas, it was a day-long interview, which I thought was great. My final interview, right, which I thought was great because they really wanted to get a feel for the person that I am. And I was 100% myself in every way, because I'm like, if this doesn't work for them, then I need to know that, because I can't be happy here. Right. if this is not the kind of person that they're looking for. And I think a lot of times people just want to be what they think other people want from them. And that might get you a job, but it doesn't serve you long term because now you have to show up pretending to be somebody that you're not. And I just feel like I end up connecting to the people that I want to be around and talking to when I actually am being myself. And anything else just doesn't. It's not good.
When I was working for Vigilante, one of the things I used to do before interviews where people were coming in to work in the production department is while they were waiting for me, because I had the like slash job role, small companies where you do 17
you got to do it all.
Right. So people show up, I've scheduled this time, but I'm clear. I'm probably roasting. I'm helping the manager at the cafe. I'm doing something, right? While they were waiting for me, I would have them play a level of Tetris. Partially because I get to see if you know how to like fit things into spaces, because production, you got to fill boxes. Like I need to make sure you have the logic of, if I put this here, this fits perfectly, right? But also it disarms you from keeping that wall up of I'm at an interview.
Yeah.
So if you rocking and you playing Tetris for 15, 20 minutes and I walk in, hey, what's up? You don't let that I'm about to interview thing go, and I get to interact with like you.
The real you.
Yeah. And a lot of times, companies like the corporate shit of like, you need to be a culture fit. We've heard that phrase before.
Yeah.
Like I get you, but like I really more so care of like when you are at your core, like of who you are you a good person? Can you show empathy? And then do you understand the task at hand? If you have those three things, the rest of your skill set will develop in these spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Making that switch from roasted coffee to green coffee, and being in the industry for so long, like I've seen so many trends and things change. Now that you're in green coffee, what are you excited about now, and what do you see coming in the industry? For me, it's been, seeing a lot of Black people get involved in coffee.
It's really nice.
That was the huge
It's really
change
nice
for me.
Yeah. So one thing, I'm definitely going to speak to the green coffee bit of it, but one of the things I've been the most privileged to do is be a part of the founding board of the Coffee Coalition for Racial Equity and our PACE program at the Neumann Cafe Group. Now, I, gave some input at the beginning of the PACE program, but from that end, like we have an excellent team at NKG. I'm not a part of that team. And so I'm saying this because I don't want to take credit for the work that they've done. But I did help from the CCRE side of things. And I'm extremely proud of the program that, is like literally taking, because one of the main issues that, and this is something we talked about before we filmed, right? But that there's an access disconnect to the experience needed to move to this side of the industry that I'm on for Black folks, because you cannot just plug and play green coffee. You need the understanding of cafe operations to be really good. You need the understanding of cafe operations, of roasting operations, and like what they need and when they need it. And you need to actually understand tasting coffee and how things will translate in the roaster. And that is not stuff, that kind of palate development, that does not come out overnight. That comes from years in the industry. And getting access to that kind of stuff, you usually have to start in a cafe. If people are not hiring Black folks, how are they going to get that experience? You know what I mean? Like, and I used to say this all the time, like New York, I don't think people realize it, but New York, the South has some of the highest concentration, obviously, of Black folks in the U.S. The New York City has a similar concentration, right? It's somewhere here, it's usually between like 25 and 30%. That's a lot.
Right.
New York also has that. I don't think my coffee career could have evolved in a city that didn't have that.
Right.
Like my coffee career evolved how it did because I'm in New York. If I was somewhere else, I can't guarantee that I don't believe that it would have turned out the way that it did, right? And so I am excited about this program because it means that we're cutting that out. Like they receive a year-long internship and they get to see everything. It's a paid internship. They get to see everything, how it all works. but they are trained in coffee quality and assessment. And while that is something I know how to do, they will receive, by the time they finish, they will know more about it than I do. Mm-hmm. And I just am excited. That's one of the things I'm really excited about, is making that change on the green coffee side of things, because I know Phyllis. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know Janine. And I would love for someone to prove me wrong. I think I might be the only Black woman selling green coffee at a company that I didn't start. Yeah. I'm like, most people need to start a company.
You are.
Yeah.
I literally think I'm the only one, right? So for me, this is like the program is like very exciting, because I don't want that to be the case. And I like that the program is taking that and making it, that specifically making green coffee look different. So that's one of the things I'm really, really excited about. Another thing, really the main thing that excites me, is creating long-lasting roaster-producer relationships. Mm-hmm. Like finding the right coffee for someone, and for someone who's invested in that relationship year over year, and who can help create the stability needed to run a business. I think a lot of times people start romanticizing coffee producers, and in some ways it's interesting. They don't view them always as business owners,
right?
In the way that they're business owners or business operators in the case that you don't own the business, right? But they're also a business operator. You have to make forecasts, and so do they. Mm-hmm. You depend on a certain amount of stability in your clients and in how much coffee you expect to sell them. So do they.
Yeah.
And
I cringe when roasters say my coffee farmers.
Oh Lord! Oh my goodness! No!
It ain't a cringe. I'm like, what?
Yeah. It's very like.
It's like you just told me a lot of things.
About yourself.
In that sentence.
We can put a blank where coffee farmers is, and we know what they actually say.
Well, the way that I have navigated that is, I say producing partners.
Yes.
Because
that's what it is.
That's what it is.
That's exactly what it
is. Their business, they're a part, it's a partnership that keeps your business going. Your business keeps their business going. Their business keeps your business going. And but I'm like our farmers, like, no, that sounds crazy as hell.
Right.
And it doesn't I think a lot of times people are not as thoughtful as they should be.
Right.
When it comes to producing relationships and a long-term commitment and understanding what that can yield, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking of two specific relationships right now. One is Kodech, which is out of Guatemala. Mm-hmm. The other is Mungano, which is out of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Mm-hmm. And so Kodech is a perfect example. When we first started working with Kodech, the coffee quality was not what it is now. They were always good coffees, but they were not what it is now. Right. Having a long-term relationship where we always do the cupping competition and we always visit and we always buy, and that's possible because the roaster's committed, because that's not a commitment that we can make without the roasters, right? So like the roasters who have committed themselves to that particular relationship played their part in taking coffees that were like 82, maybe 82 and a half, to consistently 85, 86, 87 point coffees. Right. And people don't always understand, like, if you don't buy the 82 or the 83 and talk about what you would like to see, you don't get to 87. Especially if you're talking about producing groups that maybe don't have a lot of power in their particular communities, and maybe don't have a lot of market access, right? And so like Kodech, again, it's a great example in that they have, most of the producers are indigenous, still speaking indigenous languages. Some don't speak Spanish at all. And that is a thing in the highlands of Guatemala and in other places of Central America, right? And so if you don't speak Spanish, how the hell are you going to connect make the connections that you need inside your country, to make the connections you need to participate in an international market. And of course, a lot of people who are helping with the administration of the cooperative, of course, they do also speak Spanish, but they have members who don't. Mm-hmm. And because they do, those members have access to a market here that is reliable, that they can depend on. And indigenous people in Central America are very marginalized to this day. And so that then becomes like, that's a relationship that I'm excited about. And that's something that's important to me, right? It's like connecting more people to, and I don't want to say there's any sale where where it doesn't matter, but there are some sales that are more impactful to the producing partners. And that's just the truth, right? And it's the same with the Democratic Republic of Congo. Like every bag sold is a big deal. And having that market access that does not depend on it does depend on the stability of the country, right? To be able to get it out. But you're not just tied to things having to work right where you are to be able to maintain this like line of like business communication relationship, right? Yeah. And so whenever I can connect someone to a relationship like that, and whenever I can get them to see the value of doing it and of what it means, then that's like a win for me. And that's something I'm really excited about, right? And of course, I do sell all kinds of coffees, but I obviously connect to those and push those when I can, especially because they're great coffees. Yeah. So it's like they're stellar coffees, but they are the way they are now because some roasters a few years back really like committed to participating in those relationships. And that is something that I find kind of excited about. And I think it will become more necessary as coffee production gets shakier through due to climate change and, destabilization in some places. Like I understand that. I mean, one, we don't exactly know who is going to even be able to produce coffee in 50 years if things continue as they do. And so I just think getting people to commit to like traceable relationships and seeing the impact that they have and seeing what they mean for communities is something that I'm kind of always pushing towards.
Right.
Yeah.
You brought up how you sell all kinds of coffees, but there's some that like you just have a larger attachment to. It's the same through line as for those people. Yes, every bag matters to those indigenous farmers, but there are some relationships and some sales that ultimately connect in a different way because they lead to something greater or they mean something greater.
Yeah.
Green coffee. Talking about green coffee, we had this conversation prior to where you were like, there's a lot of people that don't understand the difference in purchasing green coffee for like cafe consumption and for those that are looking into how they pick coffees for like competition or the things that ultimately, showcase on those large scale platforms that end up changing the trends for the industry. What are some of the things that you have learned in your different segments of selling coffee to help kind of get people to wrap their minds around that?
I think one of the things that people need to understand is that these competition coffees don't come without they're on the backs of all the other coffees, right? Mm-hmm. So like you'll hear people who are like, oh, that coffee's only an 85. First of all, that's a high scoring coffee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not in their head. They're like, oh, it starts at 80. So that, first of all, that's a high scoring coffee.
Yeah.
Second of all, that might be depending on the coffee or what you're talking about, maybe that's 10 to 20% of somebody's output. Mm-hmm. In some cases, it might be a lot more, right? But the fact is, the majority of like these really high scoring coffees, they've been separated out for quality and separated out again, right? Mm-hmm. That's how you get there.
Yeah.
And people can't live off of
right.
People can't live off of 10% of selling 10% of what they've got going on, right?
Right.
So what I really want people to understand is that there actually is a home for every coffee. There's a place for every coffee. There is a customer for every coffee. And the coffee that you might turn your nose down at is that's someone's livelihood. And we don't, and sometimes you have to be like, do you have the right to, sorry, what's the word? I can only think of the word in Spanish right now. Do you have the right to kind of demand, like, do you understand what it takes to make an 87? And then do you have the right to demand only an 87 when the people you are selling this to can't tell the difference and don't give a fuck? I don't think so.
Right.
Hello.
Do you even understand what goes into producing coffee?
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, all of it. Because guess what? It's also not easy to produce an 80.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like, I think sometimes people see some machines shaking some trees in Brazil and they think, and I'm like, no. That's like one country, and that's some farms in that country.
Right.
The rest of it, it's handpicked, friend. So it's hard as fuck to produce an okay coffee.
I think people forget that this is numbers out of 100.
Yeah.
So like, let's take it away from coffee for like 2 seconds. Let's take it away from coffee for like 2 seconds.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
85th percentile in everything in the world is immaculate.
Right.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It ain't that easy, y'all.
Yeah,
it's really not.
And so is an 82, depending on what you need it to do.
Exactly.
And remembering that this is an industry, and it's about selling to people who are not us. Like
We're
other
a niche
people.
market
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
You know?
Like other people do not care. Like other people do not care about this. They're not looking for it, and they might actually hate it.
Right.
Right. Like, I mean, one of the things I wish that I could get end users to understand, like your customers to understand, is that they're not paying enough already for coffee.
Right.
And that would be great if we could really get them to understand it, because you know what? It's like, y'all are not even paying enough for 83s. Like the customers, right? The final customers. So I would love to see that just kind of raise in a way that was sustainable for everybody. But it needs to be most sustainable for producers, because you literally don't have coffee without them. But it's also about getting people who are in the industry to understand, like, you buy for your end user customer.
Right.
And so it's like sometimes when people are like, oh, this coffee was an 86.5 last year, this time it's only an 84.5. And I'm like, is that enough of a reason to not buy this coffee? Like, are you going to not buy this coffee now when you've been buying it for 5 years because of a 2-point differential of a coffee that's still delicious? That seems like a good choice to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right.
That
so
somebody other than the farmer graded.
Yeah.
Let's pull it back from coffee for a second and think like, you work at a company for X amount of years, and your best year was 2021 as an individual. Like, you as an employee, you were best in 2021, and something happened to you in 2022 where you weren't outputting the same way. Does your job get to walk to you now and go, hey, so actually, instead of giving you a raise this year, we're actually going to either pay you less or just let you go? Like, how does that make you feel?
Exactly.
You know? Now, spin that back to coffee. Like, you try to dispose of product and not think of the long-term impact that these things have. Yeah. And that's why we have these issues, you know?
Yeah. That's such a good, and I did think that too, right? Like as far as, like, I'm sorry, even if you're a great employee, you're not always having the best day. Right. You're just not, because you're a human being. Maybe somebody in your family passed away. Maybe there was a global fucking pandemic.
Yeah.
So yeah, friends, the coffee is not going to be the same as it was before. Like, half the world shut down and a lot of people died. Yeah. No, it's not right now. Right. And so I just want to be like, and if all of your customers stopped coming to your cafe because you couldn't get oat milk during the pandemic, would that feel good? And they were just like, fuck you.
Gave you a bad Yelp review.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Like, I'm like, would you be thrilled if that was the case? No. Like, and sometimes I feel like people feel a little too within the right to demand the best that they've ever had, and that it should be repeatable every year. And it's not based in reality, and it's not based in what a customer wants. So then you're being kind of like a diva about a thing that your customer will not know the difference.
Yeah, everyone hates Karens, and so they have to turn into one.
Literally.
Like, I mean, shit,
Literally.
Let's call a spade a spade. 'Cause,
Literally.
like, you want that compassion given to you from the end user, from all the people that
trying to give it up.
Like that are vital to you
right.
being able to survive and succeed. You want that compassion from them for all of the things that could happen.
Yeah.
If you're a wholesale coffee company, like if UPS don't ship your stuff on time, if if you got a crazy amount of workload and you can't hit all the markers the way that you want to, you want people to understand and be patient with you, but you can't do that with the people that depend on you now. Right. You know, like that ecosystem is so messed up because the people in the middle are the ones with the least amount of understanding of how they need to pay it forward the same way that we expect others to do for us.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, most people were really understanding. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's just something that I want to see, but I want to see more of it, and I want to see more of it at more levels, and I want to see that communicated to staff, right? Who might be like, "Oh, this year the coffee was only an 85, not as good the year before." I want that to be understood. Right. Like, I just think people don't always understand what they're asking for.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think we should just keep asking for more from producers because we can. Mm-hmm. Like maybe you can do it, but should you?
Right.
Yeah.
Let's stop looking at them as our farmers.
Definitely cut that
partnership.
Yeah, cut that right now.
I mean, if I buy this 85-point coffee and this year I screw it up in the roastery, the farmer doesn't come to me and be like, yo, you can't buy my coffee no more.
Right.
Can I also ask a question though? Like for real, like y'all have been in this industry longer than I have. How many times have you heard on a mass scale end users going, yo, this coffee is
literally
ass.
Never.
Exactly.
Literally never.
Like some of our best coffees at Black and White. And once again, this is not a black and white podcast, but like just frame of reference context, y'all. Yo, Lem fucked up with that table. We're gonna leave him alone. Nah, but real shit. Nah, but like real shit though. Like some of our best coffees, like we get rave review, and then there'd be this one person that's like, yo, this shit trash, bro. Like, I went to insert coffee company here, not gonna do, but you know what I'm talking about. And it was and coffees here were way better than yours. It's like, this is just not the coffee you like, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that happens so infrequently,
so rarely,
that it's no reason for y'all to be as anal and disrespectful.
So rarely,
like about all these other coffees.
I mean, most of these customers are buying the Costa Rica. I mean, they're not even saying the damn name.
Right.
I'll take the Costa Rica, please.
Can I get that Colombian, please?
Yeah, I'll take the Ethiopian.
Let me get the African
coffee. Watch this. No, I'm about to.
got an African coffee on board.
Hold on. I'm about to slam dunk this one. Y'all threw it up there.
Continent,
yeah, exactly.
Even those is a small percent of the customers.
It's true.
Most people's like, yo, can I get a cup of coffee?
It's true.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about even the people who buy the bag of beans with the tag on it. They'll be like, let me get the Costa Rica.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can't fool me and think
the
finca.
Right. Let me get that finca.
Let me get the farm. But like my point is, even the people that buy the bag, like I'm taking this home.
Yeah.
That's still such a small percentage of this ecosystem.
Yeah, it's true.
Like
it's true.
Y'all are. You remember when we were having a conversation about competition, and I was like, there's things that people do to try to make their coffee better and like be able to perform better at competition that I think is just like them putting in mad effort for no fucking reason. Cause like if the base level you ain't like clean as a barista, you ain't like being on top of your shit there, like you hand sorting your coffee when you get to nationals ain't gonna change it if all this other stuff is ass. Like all of these things that we are talking about are small returns on investment at the end.
Yeah.
Like so like the relationships that you create, the way that you impact these producing partners, the way that the work that you do then goes to the end user, all of that stuff matters so much more before we get to this little like 1 point difference.
Right. It's true.
The end user doesn't know.
It's true.
Right.
And they're responding to the service that they receive in the place. And I also want staff to understand, I think a lot of times they think that they're a really marginal part of coffee sales. And I'm like, you are the last, like I can sell this to your roaster. They can roast it. Y'all can bag it. But the only person who gets to talk to the customers in a place, especially in a place where it's a bigger, you have more than one cafe, right? Is the staff.
Yep.
And when I loved a coffee, it flew off the shelves because I was talking to people about it, and they asked me questions. Oh, what coffee should I get? And I'd be like, oh, this one is so good. This is my favorite. Here's some information about the producers. This how long we've had this relationship. So another thing I want staff to understand is they have actually a really big impact on like which coffees get sold, and taking that and understanding, again, you're like the final piece in a chain that is really long, and every other piece is depending on you.
Can I use some corporate speak for like 2 seconds?
Go for
to
it.
kind of connect this? So when I was working at Salesforce, Salesforce does this really dope thing that I love called a V2 MOM. And what it stands for is visions, values, methods, obstacles, and measures. So pretty much what happens is the founder of the company writes, this is my vision for the year. These are the things that I value within that. These are the metrics that I'm going to use to measure, am I hitting my vision? Here are the obstacles that will exist in me trying to meet these measures and to meet the vision. And here's the measures that I'm using, right? Like you write it out. It's like this whole long ass thing, right? He does it. Then all of the people directly under him, like the vice presidents of different divisions, write theirs for the year based off of what he said his vision is. And then it goes down and down and down throughout the company. Everybody does it after their immediate supervisor has done theirs. So even you at the smallest level of the company, you can trace how the thing that you were required to do and you were responsible for is valuable to the the whole greater goal of the entire company.
Yeah.
Trying to get baristas, and it's like the last step of the process within the supply chain, to understand that importance and that value, to be like, hey, look, these are all the hands and all the people before you that have done the work that they are doing with this. And we want you to understand that you are the last and the main customer facing portion of this.
Yeah.
You are the one that's required to deliver this to people for them to have the experience that all of these people before you have tried to like work together to craft.
Yeah.
So it makes it a lot easier for the people that are like behind the bar to see themselves as a part of something greater.
Yeah, because it used to be that there wasn't good coffee or decent coffee in a lot of places. But now a lot of places have decent to good coffee. So it's not about who has the best actual coffee. It is always about how people feel in your space, how they're treated, plus all that other shit, right? And so I just think people sometimes forget the impact that they're having, and that they think they understand the buyer, which is that they're just going to want to buy the best thing. And I'm like, people go, I mean, I have a couple coffee shops in my neighborhood. I don't go to the one with the best coffee.
Right.
I walk 10 minutes to one with pretty good coffee with the nicest staff.
It makes you feel the best.
I have several right in my vicinity, and I go to the one that's further because I like the way they treat me. And I'm a coffee professional.
I was like, you're one. You probably, even at the best quality cafe, could probably make coffee better than those people.
I'm a coffee professional, and I do not go to the place with the best coffee.
Because if that was your decision making,
exactly,
you would have stayed at home.
Exactly,
and did it your damn
you
self.
got that right. There are some times when I'm like, when is this guy man gonna drop a Linea Mini in my lap? Because I'm tired of drinking bad coffee.
Man,
and my sister even said, she used to say this, man, I miss when you worked at Stumptown, Tymika, because I was drinking the best coffee of my life.
Man, through my life as a tech, there's some times I done seen them Slayer One groups at people's places where I done contemplated putting a ski mask on. Cause God, if I could put one of them in my house,
I'm like, first of all, I would never leave again. I would never
leave the house.
I'm like, because why would I, not to toot my horn, but I was a damn good barista.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'd be like, can I just make my own coffee? I will pay for it. But can I make it? Just let me make it.
Can I just dial it in? Let me just dial that shit in.
I'll pay for it.
I do want to set one parameter in this room from now until we are done for the day.
Okay.
Toot your own fucking horn.
Okay.
Talk your shit, please. Let's get that out the way. Toot your horn. Talk your shit, because at the end of the day, it's not many of us in this at all.
You got that
you know
right.
how good you got to be at this shit to be able to last in this motherfucker?
You got
talk
that
your
right.
Shit. Sorry, this is the space for you to get your
that
rocks
right.
off, get your flowers off.
I can't believe I started in coffee I started at town in 2012, and I started at the other cafe at the end of 2010. So now I'm like going on 13 years, 12 years in coffee, which just feels crazy to me. I feel like the time just...
August 8th, I hit 20 years.
It's like, how?
You want to know how crazy, like, the difference in what you view and what you've been seeing and what people on the outside see?
What?
You only got 3 more years in coffee than I do.
For real?
Yeah. I started in 2014 in May.
Oh, wow.
So by the time I met you, you was like an adult to your adults. You remember what we was talking about yesterday when we were like, dang, yo, like parenting, like we need another adult here. Like an adult that's more adult than me. Right? Like you were so adult to me at that time. I was like, oh shit, all right, cool. 3 years into coffee.
Yeah.
I felt like I knew nothing. And I'm sure you probably felt that in some ways too.
I did, absolutely. I mean, I tell people all the time, I have had thus far a charmed coffee career. And I say that sometimes because I know that there are people who care about coffee as much as I do, who worked as hard as I do, and who have had a harder time.
A hell of a go, right?
And
some of them aren't even in coffee because of that.
Because of it. Yeah. So I am clear whenever people are like, oh, what have you done? Because I've done a few panels where people are like, oh, what have you done? What served you? I always start by saying, listen, I've had a charmed coffee career. I've always had champions. I've had a lot of support. And also I have worked hard. But you can do the latter. You can work really hard. And if you don't have all that other stuff,
it ain't coming together.
It's not going to come together in the same way. So, and I don't ever want people to listen to something I say and then walk away feeling like the message is that they haven't tried hard enough. If you haven't, okay. But a lot of you have.
Yeah.
So, and maybe it's just you haven't found the right fit. And there's also no shame in stepping back from coffee if that's what's necessary. Right. But it's not, it is as much luck. And being in the right place at the right time, as anything else that has happened.
So I'm gonna have this be my last question for you on this. But for those baby baristas, for those people trying to find their way that haven't decided whether they want to stay in coffee or step back, part of the thing that all of us have been doing has been trying to open that door of access, and make it so that it is not as hard as the time when we got in, to be able to move forward, because all of us have been blessed and charmed in our own ways. But like it still wasn't easy. Like there's still so many like ways that it could have been easier. And we know people that that were our peers that were just as good of us, better than us, that didn't get the same opportunities for whatever reason. What do you say to those baby baristas? How do you help them find that fit of a mentor? How do you help them find that connector that will allow them to make that next step?
I feel like that's tricky because my thing is I kind of always want to be able to offer myself up directly, but these days I have to be like, girl, I even had to step back from CCRE just because like, I was like, I actually don't have time.
Got a family now.
Yeah. You know? Like straight up. I was like, I do not have time and I don't want to be half-assing something that's really important. Like, and I also know that like in 3 years, stuff will open back up, right? It's just like right now the baby's in a really crucial time. And I know that, as she heads off to like 3K and stuff, my time will open up in a way that it's not right now. And I'm really looking forward to at that time being able to pick up some of this other stuff that I'm really passionate about. But I think my recommendation to people is to just go to events, go to panels where people are talking, go to shops that you look up to, even if you're not working there yet, and be honest about what you're looking for, and try and be thoughtful about someone's capacity to give that to you based on where they're at, right? Because sometimes people just don't have it, and you have to respect that. And I think what people don't understand is if you are a marginalized person in coffee, you might have less because you're trying to be a lot to a lot of people, right? So you may have less, like the desire is there, but you might have more going on than someone with a lot more support than you do, or like a lot with family money or whatever, who doesn't have to care, right? There's like a bunch of things that people just don't think about. So I think it's important to be thoughtful about that person's capacity and just be open and connect to people to your people. Like, so it's like, find your people that like you really connect to, not because you're necessarily looking for a mentor, although it's fine to be open about that. But the best mentoring relationship will be one where there's a real connection. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of, everything starts to me for them with connection and like getting yourself out there and making friends and being supportive. And I feel like that can come back to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that is a perfect way for us to close this one. I got one last thing for you. Is there anything that you want to promote, highlight, let the people know? Talk to us.
I got a podcast that comes out once every 6 years called No Free Refills.
Oh my God. Yeah. Where can they find No Free Refills?
You can find my biannual podcast, my bicentennial podcast on Apple Podcasts. Oh, man. And on Spotify. It is funny as fuck.
Carrier pigeon.
It's good. For real. It's funny as fuck, though. It's me and Ezra. I swear we will start recording episodes again. Mm-hmm. And it is only tangentially coffee related. So it's a pop culture podcast where we talk about TV shows or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, we drink coffee and then we talk shit about our favorite reality TV shows or whatever's going on, or if Beyonce drops an album. And so I want to promote that. I do want to promote the PACE program. Mm-hmm. Again, right now, we're in our second cycle, but when you follow our Instagram, I think it's just NKG PACE, like PACE. If you want to see what the partners are up to, in the link. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you want to see what the partners are up to, and because when it's time for next year, and the applications will open up, they will open up there. So, and also for people who have interest in investing yourself,
right?
Like people who can play a role, whether that's offering. Maybe you can offer them a role in your organization after they leave the program. Like there's lots of ways to be a partner to that work.
Right.
And I definitely want to promote that. And listen, if you need green coffee, holla at your girl. Okay. Holla at your girl.
She got some heat over there.
I've got some heat over here. And I want to help. So I think that's it. Yeah.
Yes, sir. All right. So we're gonna have some more from Tymika on the next episode. But this has been great. Thank you for being here.
Thanks
a lot, yo.
Oh my God, so good to see you.
Hardest working, only Black woman, right? Green coffee sales rep,
one of one
in the world.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Right. Unless the next one starts her own company, but we're trying to change that.
Right.
That's right.
We are trying to change that. Yeah.
All right. So that has been another episode of the 95 Plus podcast. Thank you guys for kicking it with us. We're gonna be back next week with another dope one. Peace, everybody.
Peace.
2 times.